Keith Penley.
This is horrifying. So many people, when you're an artist, you don't get up and talk to big groups of people like this, and so I'm glad the well-star people are here. Because I think there's some kind of weird cardiac trauma. But Don, thanks for having me here. I'm very flattered that you would ask me to come and talk, and thanks to the Chamber for having me come talk, because at home nobody listens to anything I have to say. And I can't believe that there's people just sitting here, especially big shots like you guys, who are actually going to sit here and listen to me talk. And I feel so powerful. So no matter what happens here today, I'm going to tell my wife that you're all captivated. Because she thinks I'm just, all my ramblings about every topic under the sun are just my slip into insanity like every other artist. She always asks me if I've been taking my medicine. But this is a really exciting thing for me to be able to talk to people and be able to talk about my book and to tell you why I paint the things I paint, and especially to a group like this, to talk about why I think that my artwork relates to you in commerce. But I'll give you some background first. I was born on the Georgia side of Lookout Mountain, so I am technically native, and lived in Chattanooga for a little while. And then I moved to Athens when I was about 5 years old. My dad started a piano store. Some of you may have heard of that town. Some of you may have heard of this guy, Vince Dooley, down here too. He kind of follows me around. He's part of my entourage. But anyway, I'm going to get into trouble for that one. But anyway, it was great growing up in Georgia. When I moved to Macon in middle school, went there to throughout high school, and Macon was a great town to grow up in. And when we were in Macon, we never really knew that there was a world outside of Macon, and so we kind of lived this really culturally repressed environment, but we were happy with it. And when I was a kid, I drew all the time. I was always known as a school artist, and that's all I did. I was a very strange little kid, probably. But when I got home from school every day I sat in front of television and drew. I mean, it's not cool to say that you watched a lot of TV, but I did. I watched a lot of television. And I think there are a lot of negatives. I'm not promoting the TV thing with kids, but there are some positives to it. My favorite shows were things like The Lone Ranger, and I loved Adam 12, and I loved war movies. I loved John Wayne, and just all these great good versus evil kind of shows and movies that we don't really seem to have today. Today, good and evil has become so ambiguous. And as children, we were taught that America was the good guy, and it didn't really occur to us to think anything different. But now, in a police show, the cops are seen as the bad guys and propped, and the criminals are glorified. And in war movies, Americans are always seen as the aggressors or evil. And not always. And my speeches always make sweeping generalizations, so just go. I'm sure there are a few exceptions, but I love exaggerations. So, but in general, I think the culture has changed. But when I was watching all these shows and in every other kind of entertainment, it influenced my artwork, it influenced what I drew, and I think that foundation stayed with me later in life for what I draw and paint today. So that's all I did as a kid, is I drew, and we worked all the time. And I grew up in a small business. My dad owned a piano store, and when we weren't in school, we were working all the time. And my dad broke a lot of child labor laws, and I'm still bitter about my bad dad promotion pianist. So I'm still trying to figure out some kind of legal avenue that I can take against it. If I thought he had any money left, I'd go after him. But I did try to get out of the store some. I mean, even though in our family the business was our life, I started, like every other boy, I was obsessed with sports. And So, and since Coach Julie's here, I'll tell my football story. When I went out for JV football in 8th grade, and the coach huddled us all together at the beginning of the season to see what hand he had been dealt. When he got to me, he said, "Son, can you throw?" I said, "No." He said, "Can you catch?" I said, "No." He said, "Can you kick?" I said, "Not very good." He said, "Well, son, what can you do?" And some smart-ass kid in the back of the huddle said, "Well, he can draw." But I had a lot of crowning athletic achievements in high school too. Coach, I was a great athlete. I was somewhat of a phenom. My basketball coach told me that I set the record for most technical fouls in a game and a season. So I had that something about my face that can make a referee really mad. And then I had a lot of academic accolades also. I think I was a very strong C student. And we all went to Georgia back in the days where your dad just had to really coach you on your social security number and your picture. As long as you could get those numbers down, and you had it. But Athens was a great place to grow up. It was really a magical time, and Coach, you had a lot to do with that, bringing Herschel to Athens and everything, and winning a national championship kind of added to that aura of being in Athens. So, and also it never occurred to me that I would never go anywhere else, but, I mean, I'm not knocking any other schools or anything like that, but I always knew I was going to go to Georgia. It never occurred to me that I would go anywhere else, and thank goodness I don't live in today's world where we have to make the super SAT scores and all that kind of thing and make good grades, because it would have been a debacle for me. But I lived in this really conservative little world. I lived in a fraternity house, and we were the same kind of environment, this really sheltered, cloistered environment. And then the first quarter that I started going into my major classes, which was drawing and painting. And if you can believe that, I couldn't believe they were going to actually let me go to college and be a drawing and painting major. I mean, it's so easy. But, I've been doing it forever. So I walked into the art department the first day, and I had this little fraternity beach weekend t-shirt on and duck-head khakis and probably penny loafers or something like that on. These people were looking at me like I was Typhoid Mary. I've never been exposed. When you're growing up in Macon and you come along in this kind of environment, you're not really exposed to a lot of different points of view on things and a lot of different cultures. So I got to see a lot of different ways to dress, a lot of different ways to wear your hair, a lot of different ways to smell. But it was a good experience for me. My first painting professor at the university was this guy named Jim Herbert. And this crazy looking guy. He had this gray ponytail that went down the middle of his back. And he was famous for doing REM videos. And I know some of his videos had naked